Welcome everyone back to another episode of Happy Hoe Life Podcast. I invite you to take a breath, let yourself really land here, and my soul is beaming out of my body with excitement for today's guest. We have with us the one and only Valerie Howard, the brand witch, and also just dear soul sister of mine, powerful force of nature, unforgettable, unstoppable, incredible woman that I have the gift to call a friend. And hello, Valerie. Welcome. I'm literally, my face is like already hurting from smiling so much. I'm so excited to have you here. And if you want to just say hello and introduce
I'm so excited. I'm like jumping in. Yeah. I love you so much. I'm so excited to be here. I've been like so looking forward to this. I'm Valerie, the brand witch, branding business coach. You're my soul sister. So yeah.
Oh my goodness, Valerie. I just have to say your presence and your energy and the way that you carry yourself and even just like sitting and I'm like, we're sitting in the room together on our Zoom room, but it just feels like we are dancing together in some meadow in outer space. Like that is what your presence and your energy does to my soul. It just, every time I speak to you, I'm like, oh yes. And every time I go to your Instagram, which will be linked in the show notes, everyone, I'm like, let's just yes, receive Valerie's genius, receive Valerie. And part of the reason I was so excited to have you on this podcast is because I feel you embody the energy of Happy Hoe Life like no other being I know. I just feel like the way you show up with such grace and so much power and also just as you are. Like I feel like you're the kind of person where I come across your content or hear something and it's like I know it was Valerie because your voice is just so distinct and it rings so clear and so true. And I'm actually thinking of a post that you wrote. It literally is probably like a year or more ago, Valerie, but I still think about it like regularly. And it was that post, I think it was called like a letter to women over 40. And it was this beautiful post. And if you're open to, I'd love to just hear about like where that post was inspired from, and if also you just wanted to share about what you shared in that post, because it was just honestly to this day was one of the most hauntingly beautiful pieces of writing I have come across. Like I said, it's like if the post is like a year or something, and I literally still think about it and receive medicine from it.
Oh, that means so much. I can't even tell you. That means the world to me. That was one of the most vulnerable pieces that I've written, and one of the most vulnerable things I've ever put on social media, for sure. And it's the funny thing about really like going to the place that you're the most scared to go, that was the place for me at the time. Something about just speaking it alchemizes something. There's a healing that it's hard to put into words, how it's just the power that was holding over me, sort of this fear or the insecurity and the doubt and of being in my 40s now, like, and the stories that I had and what I made it mean and all of these things. The power, like the hold it had on me, just melted away as soon as I spoke it. And so as soon as I allowed myself to be witnessed in all of that. So so for me, it came from being around, I mean, this was just sort of all my perception. This is what I was just like living at the time. Because being in your 40s, I just feel like it's so young. Being in your 50s is so young, and so like I just want to put that out there. It's like beautiful and sexy and like your life is just starting in so many ways. But at the time, I was in this headspace of a little bit embarrassed, to be honest, of just being in my 40s. And my perception was that I was surrounded by these amazing women online in my audience, people I was following in my programs, in my mastermind, that were just so young they were in their 20s or their 30s even, and they were just so self-expressed, so freely able to, dance in their lingerie on camera, or to show up, makeup free, and then like, or to just speak and just show up and be seen in these really vulnerable ways, and be sexual online and embrace their sexuality and all of that. And for me, it felt like I felt rage in that moment, deep, deep anger at my own conditioning and upbringing, and all of the ways I felt like I could see myself as a young girl and into my teens and early adulthood, really being trained and conditioned to go into a workforce, to meet the criteria of, the patriarchy, right? That word is so overused, but it's like these patriarchal systems of like, how can I, like, everything from applying to college and being presentable and somebody that they would approve of, right? This board of people who would be judging me, and going into the workforce and being presentable and not being too sexy. And I remember my boss, like I went through a whole training, my very first corporate job. I was 24 and my boss was a woman, and I really looked up to her at the time. And she was like, you need to make sure like you're feminine, like you wear makeup, do your hair, make sure your nails are always done, but don't be too sexy, don't be too feminine. So like nothing too low, nothing too short, because then that would be like, a distraction, or people would get the wrong idea. And just reflecting back on those years at that job, and like the sexual harassment that I put up with on a regular basis, and was under the belief, under the spell that this was just what I had to deal with. It sometimes was probably my fault, is what I thought. I was giving the wrong impression. I was like, whatever. All of those things in my mind brought me to a place where I was 40 years old, and I had to dismantle all of that before I could be my true self. And dismantling it was a job that was too big for me to do. It was too much. It was so much work. And here I saw young women, and it made me happy for them that they didn't have that bullshit conditioning. Sure, they had other stuff, right? Like, but they didn't have the boss that I did, who, was touching me inappropriately on my arm or my waist or whatever. They didn't have those experiences, and it felt like it was easier for them. That was the belief, and it was harder for me. It was easier for them. It was harder for me, and I felt so pissed off about it. So that's why I wrote that piece, it was just an open letter to anyone, any woman of a certain age, whatever age that was, could relate to that was also feeling it. And I know it was like a long-winded answer, but that's kind of where it came from.
I felt the sacred rage. I felt the happiness. I felt everything as you spoke it, Valerie. And I feel I resonated so much with that piece of content, because that's just like magnificent piece of writing. Like, I feel like to call it content, I'm like, I just want to like hand it to all women everywhere. But I resonated with it so much because how old am I? I'm 30 in this current year as this is being recorded, but I feel that too sometimes, like looking at younger women like in their 20s or even in their teens, and you're like, oh, what, that level of self-expression exists for them, like that being embodied in who they are, that feeling confident and comfortable in their bodies. Because I know for me, I spent my entire 20s living for somebody else, right? And like all my college years, remembering it's like I was never confident within myself. I never had that level of self-esteem. I never believed in myself the way I felt and could see these other young women believing in themselves. And I too simultaneously felt sad. Like, I felt really fucking sad. I was like, damn, like I just need to grieve for those years of my life when I didn't know how to live for myself, and I didn't know how to connect to my voice, and I didn't know how to be self-expressed and true to myself, and simultaneously angry and resentful and annoyed at these young women who, in my perception, right, like perhaps it was not their journey at all, but like just seeing them so embodied, like you said, dancing in lingerie, or like frolicking as forest nymphs in the woods, or whatever. It's like, oh my God, I never connected to that until I was way, way, way later in my life. And I just feel like it's powerful when, as you said, it's like sharing those pieces that feel really vulnerable, or owning those parts of us that we feel shame around. Like I definitely felt kind of ashamed. I was like, oh my God, why am I like angry at these young, amazing women doing amazing things? Like, shouldn't I just be happy for them and celebrating them? But secretly, I'm like, also fuck them. But I mean,
Totally.
it's like so powerful to name that though, because it's like, it doesn't hold any power over us anymore. And it's just like free, and it's out there. And I'm curious for you, even to Valerie, in posting that piece of content, but also just in general, like the ways in which you navigate transmuting shame, or the ways in which you navigate really owning the fuck out of who you are above, comparisons, or those moments. I know for me as well, like that happen when it's like it's so easy to look around at what everyone else is doing, and look around at everyone else and how their business is going or what their content is about. And I'm curious how it has been for you to be in the practice of clearing that shame again and again, and coming home to, this is who the fuck I am. Take it or leave it.
Oh, that is such a beautiful question. It's because I think for me, the the greatest lesson, and it's like a lesson, it's a muscle I'm still working on, like I'm still making stronger. It is accepting feelings like shame as just as feelings. Like it's okay to feel these things. It's completely okay. Right. And these feelings don't mean you're not evolved or evolving. It doesn't mean that you're not healing. You're not spiritual, and I think those are the stories that I've attached to those feelings. Like when I compare myself to others, not only would that feel really shitty to the comparison, but then I'd felt it was like this, I would just kind of turn inward at the shame, or at just like the disappointment with myself for not being like able to rise above it, or to not be immune to those things. Because in my mind I'm like, well, once you make it, or if you're spiritual and you're a channel for abundance, and if you want to be like one of those manifestation queens that you see online, like those things don't bother you. They're not supposed to bother you anymore. And to be bothered, does that mean that I'm like, I just can't fucking get this right? Like what is wrong with me? And so the first thing was deciding that that is okay, and that there was nothing wrong when those feelings came up. There was nothing wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with those feelings. It's almost like they have a place in my journey, all of it, all of it. And so that was the first piece, and that's something that I'm still working on. And and the other thing, it's like, for me, I find deep, I don't know if it's like a grounding, or the way that I sort of return to myself. It's such a simple thing, but I'll just share it in case this helps anyone listening. It's remembering who I was before I was even born, before my parents were even born, before this lifetime even started. Who is that soul and that light? And where did that source energy come from? And just connecting back to that truth. I'm like, it just makes everything feel lighter for me.
Wow. I'm literally like tearing up, Valerie. Like you're like, oh, it's such a simple thing. I'm like, you mean like the most beautiful practice I've ever heard. Wow. That is so beautiful. And like you said, it's like, it is so simple and yet so profound, like to connect to not only, who we were. Like, I feel like I've done a lot of like breath work sessions where I like imagine like I'm in the womb again, and it's like where everything is, there's no bullshit, there's no stories, there's no conditioning, like you're just this like perfect, beautiful, growing being. But I'd never taken it to that place of like, who is this source energy that lives within me now? And I feel like it's taking that zoomed out perspective and being able to see yourself in this higher light, and from that space of that higher light vision, it's like all the bullshit and all the reasons why we make ourselves wrong. And I think you totally nailed it. That story that I know I resonate with. It's like, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? And it's like, or am I just spinning this story that somehow everyone else is right and I am wrong, when in fact I am also right. I am perfect. I am whole. I am amazing. And I feel like I want to meditate on that tonight and connect with that source energy. And I'm so curious as well for you, Valerie, because, having known pieces of your story and also seeing you now, like the way that you show up, the way that you share, like if I just saw your Instagram, I'd be like, wow, this woman has always been powerful, which you have been, of course, but it's like she's always known her power. You've always known your voice. And I've been thinking about, I think you said, like 24-year-old version of you in the workforce, like putting up with, having to be agreeable or having to be feminine, but not too feminine, and just like, oh, like all of that shit. I'm curious, what was it like to walk yourself to the place that you are now? What was it like? And of course, it's this ever, I just see it as a circle, this like continuously walking ourselves back home. But was there any particular situations that kind of catapulted you forward into this version of yourself that you are now? Or was it more of a beautiful slow burn of remembrance and soul deepening?
For me, it was a huge catalyst was turning 40. And now I'm going to be 42 this year. So turning 40 for me, I had been doing this sort of online business coaching thing for a couple of years. And it felt like, in a way, it felt like I just kept banging my head against the wall. It felt like nothing I was doing was like working, and I didn't know how to make it work. And I had bought all the courses, I was trying all the things. I thought I was being like bold and self-expressed, but looking back, it was like so funny. It was like me sharing a funny meme that was very like, like PG-13 maybe. And it was just, it was, and I realized when I turned 40, I just had this like moment where frankly, it was like, fuck this shit, fuck all of it, fuck it all. Whatever that means, I was just like, fuck it all. I'm willing to burn this all down. Just forget it. And I realized all of the content, all of the things that I was creating and putting out in the world, when I thought I was being like just really self-expressed and bold, I was still in the back of my mind scared what people were going to say and what they were thinking. Like people like my old bosses or my old neighbors or my parents' friends or my third grade teacher, you know what I mean? And so it was like always through this filter. And it was making sure I didn't say anything I would regret later, because like, as though I didn't want to burn any future bridges. In case all of this went to shit, I want to make sure I'm hireable by the patriarchy again. I want to make sure that all of those men in suits, like sitting up in like some kind of office building in the sky, that they would still approve of me. Like I wasn't
threatened by you.
They would never, making sure they could look at my Instagram and be like, okay, like I'm not threatened. She's not too sexy or too whatever. She's not scary. So it was like this weird thing where I felt this inner tension constantly. I was just constantly dissatisfied, constantly frustrated. And I just said, fuck this shit. And I started with very simply waking up every day and asking myself, what is one thing that like I could absolutely like never in a million years post online. Like what would be the big no? Like I could never do that. And the ideas just started coming. And the nude selfie, I was like, I could never, and then it was just like, okay, wait, what if I did? And I just played it out in my head. And I just like took the photo, the nude selfie in my bathroom. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to even post this. I'm just going to take it just for fun. Yeah. And so it's just like following those steps. And then I posted it. And yeah. And it was like unstoppable. I felt unstoppable after that. It's
Oh, I'm like, yeah, I remember that moment. It's just like tits out confidence. I feel
yeah.
like your like signature phrases, Valerie. It's just like literally like show us your tits on the internet. Like literally if you want to, also metaphorically, figuratively, if that is your preference. But it's like that unshaming, that just like, you know what? There's literally nothing to fucking hide. Like I'm here to share everything and anything, like whatever it is, here the fuck I am. And it just felt like you made this like lightning bolt on the internet with asking yourself that question every morning. And I love that that's kind of how it all began, was just you asking yourself like, what would be so ridiculous and like that I would never actually post. But when you kind of like give yourself that little space to play and be in that kind of playful curiosity of like, what would I say if I were going to say something? And then all the ideas start to flood in, because that like filter, that gate, that lock on all that sexy, creative, brilliant genius that lives somewhere in your brain and your heart. It's like all of a sudden it's like, oh, the lock is no longer there. And it's like, once the lock's no longer there, it's like good luck. Good luck for
Exactly.
know for this full level of expression.
Exactly. And I tell people, I'm always a fan of a nude selfie, like flashing your titties online. I'm always here for it. Like always going to get a vote of yes from me. But to that point too, like if that's just like not someone's truth, they're just like, for whatever reason, right? That's just not their medicine or the thing that they are holding on to, that they really need to express. That's cool too. I'm like, you need to find like the thing that you are scared to say, the thing you're scared to do, but that when you tune in, you know you have to do it. Your heart, your soul is begging you to do this thing. And it's okay if it doesn't make sense. You're tapping into something, this moment of allowing, of giving yourself permission to be seen, that you are just now like living in a whole other frequency. And it's just like, I mean, just from a place of having a business of serving others, you are now attracting your soulmate clients like never before, because you're in that frequency. So that's what it is. Like whatever the truth is for you that is on your soul, that's what I want you to share.
Oh, my soul just like, woo, she's like shaking in the best possible way. I feel like it's like a soul purr and like a soul shudder at the same time. Like, yeah, so much yes, Valerie, and I love that you spoke to that as well. It's, for someone, their fullest self-expression might look like dancing in lingerie or flashing their titties. For another person, that might feel like, oh, that's not my flavor of expression, and maybe for them, it's recording ASMR videos. Maybe
Yes.
it's doing oracle
Yeah.
cards. Maybe it's like, I know, for me, it's like sharing all my bird photos.
Yes.
Or like
Love
sharing
it.
stories about my Korean grandma. It's like, for me, those were some of those pieces, some of those edges of my expression where I was like, I don't know. Can I share this? Is this weird? Is this too much? And it's like coming back to that idea that like our too muchness is medicine, period. Our too muchness is medicine
Yes.
for the right people. It will always be medicine for the right people. But first and foremost, and I feel like you embody this so beautifully, Valerie, is our expression, the way that we choose to show up, the way we choose to dress or not dress. It's like it gets to be medicine for us first. And like receiving the gift of what is it like to like uncage your voice? Like I feel like for me, for the longest time, it just felt like there was like something choking me, like literally like stifling out my life force as I tried so hard to shove down all of these different parts of me that wanted to come alive, that wanted to be expressed. But again, I had the same thing. I was so scared, like, well, if I like talk about sex, will my parents judge me? If I am slutty on the internet, am I dishonoring my Korean heritage? And my grandmother is most certainly rolling over in her grave, regretting ever having moved to this country and being part of the reason.
Oh my gosh.
Like, it's like, damn, the shame spirals, they can run so deep as we explore
So
ourselves,
deep.
like so deep. And it's just, for each and every one of us, it's like moving at the pace that's right for your nervous system, and also being so discerning about what is your texture of expression, like what is your flavor of expression, and what is the truth of what really wants to come through for you. And I think you just like spoke it so beautifully. It's like that's when you're just like living on this frequency where people, like, they can't look away. It's like they stumble upon
Yes.
you, and it's like all of a sudden they're like talking to you or talking about you to their friends at coffee dates. They're like, so I just started following this amazing woman. Her name's Valerie. She's the brand new. I'm like, holy shit, please just like go follow her. And it's just like all of a sudden it's your expression is just like pockets of medicine all over the planet. It's like little lights, like bing, 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 like going off like all over the world, because you are willing to go first and say yes to yourself. And that's how I see you, Valerie. I'm just like, every time Valerie, like I was gonna say post, but just like the fact that you exist, it's just like light bulbs and are just going off all over the world, like bing, 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 like tits out, self-expressed, happy hoe, like just like all of these pieces. And I just think it's just so beautiful, and it's such a gift to have witnessed you. And for those that don't know, a little backstory, Valerie and I think we must have met like 2 years ago, no, something like that.
It was like 2020.
Yeah, it was 20. Oh my God, so it's probably been like 2.5 years, maybe 3 years.
Yep. It's
And
2020.
we got to hang out in person one time as well when I was in San Diego, and it was the best. But I feel like it's just been, and for both of us, like it's been such a gift to have known you for these years, and to have gotten to like feel along for their ride, and witnessing you step even more deeply into your self-expression and own every speck of who you are. And I'm curious, in your like soul deepening, soul awakening, were there any like archetypes within you that you found to be surprising, or any parts of you that you were like, whoa,
Ooh.
I did not know that was in there, but hello.
Yes. Oh, that's such a juicy question. I think, yes, big time. Like I'm still surprised, and I don't even know what to name her, but it's like this, it's like the dark feminine. It's like this, I mean, my aesthetic online, it's just like very dark and like moody. And I'm redoing my website right now, and it's just like dark, sexy vibes. Like, but it's so surprising to me. And even how I've been like the clothing and just who I feel like I'm called to dress like and what I'm wearing. It's just because my aesthetic up until like, I don't know, now, I guess it's always been very all whites and like all light colors, neutrals, light pinks. It's like you can see in the room behind me, it's all white. Like, so having this like this dark feminine emerge, it's the things that I create now, or I'm drawn to, or the things where I see it, I'm like, oh, that feels right in my soul. I would never have picked aesthetically before. So I would never have guessed. Yeah. So anyway, I'm still sort of like getting comfortable with it, but it feels really right. It's just feels also very new still, if that makes sense.
Like that. Oh, and I love that, Valerie, because I love the name too. It's like sometimes we meet new parts of ourselves that have been asleep, and it can kind of take a moment to calibrate of like, ooh, okay, like that's me, and recognizing like this, it feels really good to be this person. It feels really good to show up in this way. It feels really good to dress this way, or embody this archetype, or whatever it is. And I feel similarly for me, and I'm quite curious if any of our listeners resonate with this, but the dark feminine, like being the most surprising part of me as well in my journey of self-expression. I was like, what the fuck? Who am I? Who is this? Like, it felt like there was like a demon inside of me in like the best possible way.
Yes. I'm thinking back, Michelle, to like the first few times, the first few reels you've created where you were like in like really badass lingerie, like not just like your run-of-the-mill lingerie. Like this was like a really cool shit. And you were like doing your thing, and it was just like I was like entranced. Like it was so, you were so at home, like this was who you are. And so, but I also can remember like it was like a whole new Michelle in a way. Like I was being introduced to a new part of you. Um, and that's how it feels. It's like, oh, who is this part of me? Like, and it's the coolest thing to witness in yourself and in others. Because when someone is on that journey or they've connected to like this new like part, and you're like, oh, like I don't know what it is. It's the way they move in their body and they shine brighter. And you're just like, oh my God, like, yes.
Oh, yeah. Oh, and I'm receiving that reflection, Valerie. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for that. And again, I think that's my soul always just feels so connected to you because one, I feel like we've shared lived experience, but also just being on this journey and walking together and getting to see and witness each other as we unravel and deepen and remember who we really are. And I feel like our souls are on a similar frequency of just owning the dark feminine. And I know for me and my journey with healing autoimmune disease, that was kind of like a really big turning point in my healing journey was when I was like, I think I'm gonna dance in the dark. And I like just like danced in my underwear or like in lingerie in the dark and would turn on like specifically I remember one time I turned on like angry Korean rap music by BTS. Actually, I'll share the song in my stories today.
So
it was
cool.
like yeah, thank you. And it was like I was just like on the floor and I was like I'm a spider and I was like I'm a demon. And I was just like, oh my God, like I think if anyone saw me right now, they would be frightened. Like I am a frightening being. And I never connected to that before. I never thought of myself as someone who could scare people or someone who could be frightening or someone who could be shocking even, because I know for me in a similar way of like, for you being kind of shoved into that, like, oh, be feminine and dress this way. Like I felt similarly in my experience growing up of I'm quite small. Like I live in a petite body. I'm only 5'2" and I was always told this story of like, oh, you're so cute. Oh, you're so cute. You're so small. You're so cute. And of course, I am cute. There's nothing wrong with owning like, yeah, I'm a cute little bitch here. But for me, it like it's like I allowed that to take over my personality. I allowed that to take over the parts of me that I was willing to let be seen. It was like, okay, I need to fit into this. Like I'm a cute, nice girl, good girl archetype, and like wild spider demon on the floor in lingerie, like doesn't quite fit that mold. But it wasn't until I like busted out of this good girl, nice girl, small, cute girl persona that I was like, oh, there's like these million other versions of me that exist within me that I have never, ever let see the light of day. It was simultaneously scary and sad, but also so enlivening and exciting and just like, breathtaking. And I love what you said, Valerie, of it's breathtaking to witness ourselves in these journeys, but it is like utterly breathtaking to witness other people when like you just like, even if you don't exactly know what shifted within them or they haven't said anything, it's just like you see someone show up in a new way or carry themselves, or it's like their spine is just like straighter and you're like, damn, yes.
Yes. I want to just add too, as you're talking, I'm like being reminded of, one of the things I'll say that I find so expansive in you for myself and so just inspiring is sort of like the depth and the range of all that you are. It's just, and that you just like, it all fits and it all belongs and you own it all. And it's so beautiful. And I think, because I believe that that's something else that I think women really have been conditioned to just, it's like, what am I? And there's this, just like whether it's an archetype or a stereotype or a thing, it's Anyway, I'm at a loss for words. I'm just so moved. Just reflecting on how I've witnessed you online over the years. But it's everything from your dark feminine and just like being this like sexy goddess, like dom energy to, your love of birds and Korean soap operas and like, like all of it, like, I see you as just like this sweet, I see the sweet in you and I see the like all the parts, the boss bitch and the sexy and it's beautiful because it all belongs and you own it all. And that is something I feel like that's a powerful lesson for all of us. And for myself, I'll share that I went through a bit of an identity crisis as I've embraced this part of myself that's a little bit like darker and moodier and sexier. And it's like, I'm like, what am I supposed to be wearing? Like, how am I supposed to be decorating my plate? Like, what is my style? Who am I? And it's like, what if it just gets to be fun? What if it just gets to be what you feel drawn to in the moment? And what if it's not like a label? You don't label yourself unless you want to. I mean, but it just, it's like it all fits. It all works. I just went on a little bit of a tangent.
My soul just like breathed a sigh of like opening and expansion and relief, Valerie, of just what you just said of like, you get to be it all. It's both and I'm also just like, I'm feeling so moved by your reflections. My little like projector soul is like, and actually even for those listening, I'll even catch myself. So sometimes I'm even like, oh, my little projector, like my little self. And I'm like, that's fine. Like I am like, but I'm also in the last, I would say 6 months, I've been in the practice of being like my big projector self, my big energy. And just like that subtle, like noticing the subtle ways in which our own language can reinforce identities that we are ready to let go of. And not that there's anything wrong with calling yourself small or cute or little, but for me, because it was this archetype that I'm like, oh, like I'm ready to shed this label. Like just as you said, it's like it was a label that I feel like was placed on me. And I was like, oh, it's there. Okay, I guess that's who I am. And it's like, no, like rip the labels off, like brush the dust off my shoulders. I don't know who that person was, but it was not me. And coming home to being big and taking up space. And I just, I'm letting your brilliance in your words just like really like soak in and into my soul and simmer into my being, Valerie. Like, that's like I could just like make a sound that describes how I feel. It's just like simultaneous like excitement and pleasure and delight and just reverence. I feel like this podcast episode, it's just like two people deeply seeing each other and sharing and letting the nutrients fall where they will.
That's how I feel. It's just, I feel so expanded just being on this call with you. It's so beautiful.
Yes. And one other thing that was coming up as we were speaking too is, of course, this podcast is Happy Hoe Life. And I also just want to say, Valerie, and I'll like pull back the curtain on my process of bringing this podcast to life, but I was actually a bit nervous about the name. Like I was like, is Happy Hoe Life like too much? Like quote unquote, is it too out there? Is it going to scare people? Right. And brushing up against my own edges of being expressed. And I remember, Valerie, I forget, I think you left me a voice note and you just shared, you were like, Michelle, I'm so excited for Happy Hoe Life. It just feels so you. And you just like shared so much excitement. And I just want to say like that voice note meant so, so, so much to me. Like, I feel like my soul received so much medicine just from being seen by you and having that reflection and that reminder of like, this, of course, and it just felt so beautiful to be witnessed by you. And actually, oh my God, so many questions are like dropping into my brain all at the same time. But okay, first one, I will leave with the one that I was thinking of is, I'm curious, Valerie, if you've ever had that same fear of like, what if I scare people away? Or like, what if I frighten people? Or like, what if clients don't want to work with me anymore because they think I'm like too wild, too out there, too like titties out and how you navigated that?
Oh, yes. Like, all the time. I mean, not anymore now. Now it feels like, that's a very valid fear. But like what I'm just going to say, for me, it feels almost silly thinking back my own fear, because the people that have come into my space since I've owned who I am, and I say the bold things, and I have a mastermind called TITS Out. And, you know, it's like, so I went all the way in, right? Just as you did. So now I'm like, who cares what those other people thought? But yes, I definitely was scared. And, so before I really like started just like blasting all my truth all over the internet, I definitely made a list of all of my fears, and I got really specific. I just had to, you know, like, this person would probably not like it. This client would possibly fire me, or whatever it was. Like, and I took some actions to help my nervous system sort of get on board with it. Like, I blocked people. I was super proactive about it. I had a very awkward conversation with one of my like best friends of 20 years, just to make sure she would still like me if I started doing this, you know. And I was prepared to like still do it anyway, but I just wanted her to know, like, give her a heads up that this was coming, like a nude selfie was coming, and these crazy names were coming. So that helped. And so I definitely want to offer that to anyone listening who's ready to embody their happy whole life in their own way. Like, it's okay to be proactive, and it's okay to like name the fear. And for me, that was super helpful. But also, I just had, at some point, you just have to do it. And for me, I did it. And a lot of my fears came true. A lot of the things that I was the most scared of happened, but I survived. But it was okay. It was a blessing at the end of the day. One of my clients fired me. Another client blocked me. Another client sent me like, you know, a DM that she was praying for me. A lot of that happened. But the payoff was so much bigger. It didn't matter. It doesn't matter. There's no way I could go back. That was just it was like, yeah, night and day. So I just want to like put that out there. What we're the most scared of happening is often like nothing. It's like, in the bigger scheme of things, the payoff is going to be so much better.
Oh, wow, Valerie, your words are just such medicine. It's like, I know in entrepreneurship, it's so easy to hold on and energize all the fears that arise and all the self-doubt that arrives, or entertain all the reasons why you shouldn't go for it, or you shouldn't share it, or you shouldn't do it. But to just hear from your lived experience, and mine as well, I can speak from mine as well. It's like, even if all of your worst fears come true, you're going to be okay. You're not going to die. You're going to survive. And like you said, it's like the payoff, the life lived in vivid color, the life lived in congruency with your soul, a life lived in a way that is you being true to yourself, will always, always, always be worth it. Even if it means relationships fall apart, people think that you're absolutely just lost your marbles. People are praying for you, people are blocking you. It's like, it's just kind of one of those things where it's like, let it all fall where it may. And you have to stand tall through the process. And I love what you shared too, of kind of proactively taking steps to like hold your nervous system and hold your inner child, or hold any part of you that's like, I'm fucking terrified. And it's like, I see you, I hear you, and these are some steps we're taking to support you and make you feel safe. And we're going to do it anyway. So buckle up and get ready. Like, it's happening.
Yes. Get ready. You've got to do it anyways. And it's something I'll just add, because something is just coming through. So I'll share part of the fear for me. And I hear this from a lot of women. It's like, they're ready. They're willing to get uncomfortable, and they're willing to do the thing that's scary, and they're ready to be self-expressed. But then the fear is like, wait a minute, like, what if this is not the thing? What if I have got it wrong? What if, it's like I'm choosing the wrong archetype, the wrong form of self-expression. And in a few weeks, a few years, I'm going to look back and it's going to be so cringy and embarrassing. What if I don't have it all figured? Like, I haven't figured it out yet. Like, my next self-expressed, the version of me, I don't know who she is yet. It feels like I'm guessing. And to that, I just feel really called to share, like, that's part of it. Like, that's the whole point. Be a version of yourself that feels, you just have to be even like 60% confident about it, 65%, but it's okay to be like, here's, I'll put it this way. One of my goals in life is to be as cringy as possible so that when I look back in 10 years from now, I'm just going to be so embarrassed by all of the shit that I'm saying and doing. Like, that is how I want to live my life, because I know in this moment, that means that I'm living with such courage and such confidence, even if I'm phoning it in some days. And I'm just so unafraid. And I have that much faith in myself and in the universe to hold me. And it's all going to be okay at the end of the day, but you just have to be brave and just go with it and try it out and be willing to like fall on your face, be willing to embarrass yourself, because when you do that, that's when real magic happens. I just want to share that.
Yes. Oh my God. Yeah. I just feel like every time you speak, I'm like, yeah.
I feel the same when you speak. We're just like
Oh,
so magical. This whole conversation is so juicy.
so juicy. And I love that, because me too. It's like, I want to look back as like a 95-year-old, like Korean grandma with my gray hair and my cane. Like, I want to scroll through my Instagram, if Instagram even still exists. And I want to be like, I would have cackled like a crazy old witch and be like, oh, remember that era? That was incredible. Wow. Wow. I said that. Interesting. Okay. And it's like simultaneously like laughing and being embarrassed and going like, oh, cringe, but also just being like, badass.
Yes.
It's like there's that like initial like, ooh, what did I say? But like underneath of it is this like deep reverence for every version of us that has lived, and being able to look back on these different seasons and chapters of our lives and being like, God damn, if I didn't let myself live. It's like, this is the precious life that we are living right now. And to live it for anyone but yourself is, to me, just no, a firm
Yes.
it's like, no, this is my life. It's your life. It is, for listeners, it's your life. And to abandon yourself in an effort to maintain the peace or make sure other people don't get frightened, or other people don't get scared, or other people don't come at you. I know for many of us, and I know you resonate with this, like through the brand witch, like the witch wound of like, what if I'm self-expressed? What if I share my magic and people start to come at me? And to me, it feels like, even if people like come at you, like I'm just envisioning people with pitchforks like coming at you like witch hunt, or just telling you that you're wrong, or putting you in your place. It's that reframe of, it's like, they're not actually really coming after you at all. What they're doing is running away from a part of themselves that they just simply don't have the capacity to face. So instead of going inward and walking themselves back home to themselves, they're running at you with their pitchfork going witch or bad person or terrible person.
Yes.
Like, it's just like, okay. But when you I feel like for me, like when that reframe like actually landed, I was like, oh, they're just running away from themselves. They're not even running at me. They're not a threat to
Yes.
danger because somebody thinks that I'm weird, or thinks what I share is inappropriate, or thinks that I'm a terrible bad person. It's like, that's fine. Like, I'm living in a way that is true to myself, and when I look back on my life, that's what will matter.
Oh, it's beautiful. That's exactly it. That's what will matter. It's like, there's no greater gift you can give your future self than to just live for your moment, live for the moment, live for who you are today. It's
I just thought it was like 444 my time just a second ago. It's like the angel numbers always like blink out, and I'm like, of course that was the message that you were speaking just as that angel number arrived. And one thing that was landing is, like I said, like I've reflected, Valerie, I feel like you embody happy whole life, and of course to each of our listeners as well. Like, it's always my invitation for you to explore, what does living your happy whole life mean for you? It's like, maybe it means being really expressed in your sensuality and sexuality. I think that's oftentimes what people immediately think of. They're like, a hoe dresses like a hoe, like a hoe. And it's like, if that is your vibe, then hell yes. But it also means so many different ways. Like part of my happy whole life is like bird watching. It's like connecting to nature.
Yeah.
So it's, finding those things that bring us back to ourselves. And to me, like even the definition of a happy hoe, it's just showing up in this world like the gift that you are. It is taking up space in a way that feels so nourishing to you. It is allowing your soul to experience life through your body and wherever your intuition may guide you. And I'm curious for you, Valerie, like what does it look like behind the scenes to live your happy whole life? Or are there any practices or any really just like anything that you do, anything that you embody behind the scenes and also outwardly for people to see that you feel helps anchor you into, like anchor you into your tits out confidence, anchor you into your happy whole life?
Mm, That's such a good question. For me, and this is probably something that changes, right? As we like move in through the different seasons of our life or year. But for me right now, it's definitely uh, like I'm like being healthy, looking at my health, caring about my health has been just, yeah, it's an act of self-love, and it's really me putting myself first, um reparenting myself in a lot of ways, and like showing this like sort of like the, I don't know, my inner child or the scared part of me, that I can hold this. I've got this. I've got her. Like, I'll take care of it. We're going to work out, and we're going to do the things that maybe in the moment don't feel like super fun, but they give me the most energy and they make me feel proud of myself. And it's just, I feel like the biggest, like the happiest hope ever when I'm like doing those things. I'm just honoring my body. So it's simple, but it's just like been very alive for me lately.
Oh, I love this, like health, looking after yourself and tending to your inner child. Like, yes, I feel like these are all foundational pieces of, up to me, what it means to live a happy whole life. And also what you said, Valerie, of honoring the season that you're in. And it's like in this current season, that's what it feels like. That's what it looks like. And I feel like that's also just such an important thing to anchor into, is that even like what we were talking about before, where people question like, oh, like, well, is this the self-expression? Is this it? It's like lower the fucking stakes. Like it doesn't have to be it. It doesn't have to be
Yes.
the thing. It's like
Yes.
the thing for this season. And then you enter a new season and there's something else that wants to come forward. But being able to lean into that trust of, well, this is what feels alive right now. And I'm going to take action on that right now, because that is what I know. That is what is in front of me. That's how I feel. And I just feel like, I remember you wrote a post too, Valerie, of like the seasons of branding, the seasons of business. And I know for me, my business has had many seasons. It's like I started out as this like good girl nutritionist, like, hi, I'll teach you what to eat. And then I was an immune coach. And then I was, in this self-expression and sensuality, and where I've landed now. And it's just that permission slip to not put yourself into any boxes. Because I know so often it's like when you've been shoved into so many boxes for your entire life, and you all of a sudden you're free, it's like there's that like temptation somewhere in the background of like, oh no, where's the box? I need a box. Let me put myself in a box. And I've definitely found that to be true for myself. Sometimes I'm like, oh, okay, I'll just like put myself in this tidy new box. And I'm like, wait, no, we are living a life without boxes, without this need of like, I need something around me to protect me, or something around me to keep myself safe, or even something around me to prevent myself from scaring myself with the power and the truth and the honesty that lives within me. And it's just like, ah, allow all the
Yes.
boxes to disintegrate and just like fall back to the earth. And anyways, that was on tangent, but I
I
love
love it.
your wisdom.
Oh, I love yours. It's just such medicine. I'm so honored to be here with you. This is so fun.
I know, me too. And I'm just tuning into my heart if there's any last pieces, and if there's anything for you, Valerie, any last threads or your stories or anything that your heart is like, oh yes, I want to say this right now. And then I always like to close out these conversations with celebrations and acknowledgments of something you want to celebrate about yourself. But first? Any other pieces, anything, any other threads that want to be pulled before we close out this spaceship adventure we've been on?
I think I would love to leave people with just a reminder that it gets to be fun and lighthearted and playful. Like none of this stuff is that serious. It's just not. And so the more fun that you can have with your self-expression, with your branding, right? With writing a post, like the things that I have gotten the most like the best response from or whatever, like I've really made waves with, were the pieces of content that I thought were just so funny or so outrageous. It's like they sort of like, like they were amusing to me, they tickled me, for lack of a better term. So that is like, it's yeah. So find the joy in it for yourself first, and I think you can't go wrong.
Find the joy in it for yourself first. Like I just want like those words to just like appear in the sky so that everyone in the world can just like receive that nutrient right now of let it be joyful for yourself, and just a reminder that it is easy sometimes to make it all very serious and very
yes,
like, the stakes are so high, and it's
yeah.
like, you know what if the purpose is to enjoy yourself and to have fun and to allow your hearts to sing and soar? And it's like from that place, where might you go? What might you do? What might you say? And you just embody that so beautifully. And I would love to hear if there's anything you want to celebrate and acknowledge about yourself in your current season, Valerie. What do you want to celebrate?
Ooh. Well, something that I did recently is I shut down all my offers. I want to celebrate that because I'm about to relaunch them all. I have offers. I'm really excited. But the reason I feel like that's something to like share is that it was so hard to do. And I was like, what am I thinking? Like, who does this? I have a business. It's like, how can I shut down every way for someone to pay me? It's just been for a couple of weeks, but it was because I felt so misaligned. Some of the offers were good and I loved them, but overall, I realized that these were all things that I had sort of cobbled together over the years based on stuff I thought I should be doing, based on what I saw other coaches do. So I was like, I just got this like epiphany download when I was in meditation one day, and I'm like, I just need to shut it down. And now I've made like an event out of it. I'm going to relaunch and announce all of the fabulous ways to work with me. And it just feels like a party, and it feels so much more fun and freer than for in the moment than if I were like going to just, I don't know, announce one new thing. So yeah, I'll just share that because if anyone else finds that inspiring, then they can also do it. I'm like, hey, you get to make the rules of your business, right? You get to do it your way.
Amen. Yes. And I just feel like that share, Valerie, is just like you are just the epitome of like a walking, breathing, fucking permission slip to just be so ruthlessly true to yourself. It's like a breath of, it's like fresh air, but like fresh, crisp, like delicious air where like the clouds are just like perfect, beautiful, like fluffy. Just like birds are singing. Like that's how I feel in your presence. And I love that. It's the being so true to yourself and not being afraid to say no sometimes when it means saying yes to yourself in a bigger way, like shutting down some of your offers for a time in order to say yes to yourself in this bigger way. And I'm actually, can you tell us about this? It's a free 3-day workshop you have.
Yes, it's coming up. So it's a free 3-day branding workshop. It's called Your Brand, but way fucking better. That's the whole name. So, and we're going to like work on branding. It's like workshopping your brand. So it's the visuals one day, your brand vibe the next day. It's like your content, your voice the third day. So I just want to like blast open the doors of like clarity. And so you will walk away with like something like you're going to come away with like just like this new excitement about how you're showing up online. So that's the whole vision.
Oh,
Very
God,
excited.
I'm so excited as well. And of course, everyone, I will have everything linked in the show notes below. Definitely like run to Valerie's Instagram, dance your way over to Valerie's Instagram and just bask in, in all of the living library of medicine that exists on your Instagram page. And just thank you so much for being here today, Valerie. Like I'm going to like leave this call just like floating on cloud nine the rest of my day. And you can't see me right now, listeners, but I'm like flapping my wings like a happy little bird. Happy big bird as well.
Big bird. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love you so much. I'm going to be doing the same. I just feel so expanded. My heart is just so full from this whole conversation. I love you so much.
I love you so much as well. And for our listeners as well, if you have any takeaways or any aha moments or just anything that landed in your heart from this conversation, of course, as always, feel free to screenshot the podcast or share on your stories. Feel free to tag me and Valerie so we can just receive you and see you and celebrate you. And thank you again, Valerie. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you to all of our listeners.
Well, thank you.
Of course.